Hey everyone, this is Dan Gross from Stereo Field Recordings here. Thanks so much for watching. You are on the first episode of my remixed sessions. I've been recording live concerts for about 10 years now, and I want to do this series where I go back and I revisit some old favorites. Maybe they're ones I'd want to do again, or I think it's a cool session. Or, we're doing something like we're doing today, which is kind of a reference recording based here. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take a session that I did on my old show, the Rochester Indie Musician Spotlight. This is with a great band called The Sideways. They're still around, they still play tons of great tunes. They're a bit poppier now, but in this session it was much more of their jazz stuff, and we'll talk about that distinction in a bit. But for this episode, this was the last episode of the Rochester Indie Musician Spotlight. And Josh Pettinger at Wicked Squid Studios, he was doing my mixing then, and he crushed it with this one. This mix is energetic, it is pumping, it is tight. It's a fantastic mix. I'm not going to be able to do it. I can't do everything that Josh does. But what I wanted to do with this one is I wanted to kind of put myself in the place of, typically when I do something, I kind of have a hand in producing it. Whether I'm the actual producer or whatever, that's just so much of my background that it just kind of comes with what I do. So I'm trying to put myself more in the position of, okay, I'm just going to be a mix engineer and someone says, okay, this is what I want it to sound like. And we're going to do that with a twist because I can just kind of know. And unlike some other ones of these, I've taken a listen to this already. I know I'm not going to be able to do everything that Josh does with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to listen to a good chunk of this track. We're not going to listen to the whole thing. And we're going to get a sound for it. We're going to get a feel for the sound. And the idea is that we're going to listen to it. We're going to take elements that we like about it, things that we can definitely emulate or incorporate into our mix. But I want to put my own spin on it. So Josh's mix is really tight, super punchy. I want mine to have a little bit more air and just kind of make it sound like you're in the room a little bit more. Josh's sounds like a studio recording, and I don't know how he did that. But yeah, it's just a different approach, but we're going to try to take elements from Josh's mix. So we're going to listen to Common Ground by The Sideways. We'll just kind of stop when we feel like it's a good time. And one thing I actually love about having most of my stuff on video is that we can see some of the, let's just call it, interesting mic placement techniques. So let's listen for a little bit.
1, 2, 3. I've been spending all my time trying to read your mind. Sometimes the things you do, they don't make sense to me.
All
Trying to say
58's
what's
on
on my
horns.
mind, but a second later I'm wishing I just kept it to myself. I'm just looking for some common ground. He's really not your type, but he wears clothes you like.
Groove is great on this.
It cooks you dinner like I used to. I've been drinking every night, trying to find this right. Oh, maybe just somebody for the night. I'm just looking for some common ground.
We'll get through this little shout chorus, then we'll start mixing. Cool. So we definitely have a feel for it, and like I said, Josh did a killer job with this mix. It sounds fantastic. We're just going to take a bit of a different approach with it. So let's find the track in our Logic session. Now, as I said before, unlike some of these that I'm going to do in the future, where I haven't touched the session in years, I've dug into this one a little bit. But I've zeroed out all the settings, so I'll be working from memory, but essentially starting from scratch here, if that makes sense. So everything has been bussed already, typically how I would do things. So we've got horn bus, overheads, drums, room, and I don't even know what is all. Is that everything but vocals? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so let's find common ground.
What do I whisper it in my ear? And I'm listening, but what?
Also, that fan sound you're hearing is my terribly outdated computer. I have the generation of MacBooks that was made right before the M1 chip, and it's been a nightmare. It essentially it doesn't have enough ability to cool itself, so when it gets too hot, it starts choking its processing power, which, yes, is just as annoying as it sounds. But anyway, let's listen to our tracking here.
2, 3, I've been spending all my time trying to read your mind. Sometimes the things you do, they don't make sense to me. Try to say what's on my mind, but a second later I'm wishing I just kept it to myself. I'm just looking.
So we got some work to do. Now, the first place I'm going to start, again, because I've listened to this, but there was some really weird crackling happening on this bass tone here. So I'm not so much hearing it now. Yeah, there we go. So basically what we're going to do, you will come to learn this about me the more that I watch. I am a stock plug-in believer. 90% of what I need to do is in a stock plug-in. I also pretty much know I'm gonna have to flip the phase on this to get it set in the mix. But let's just listen to a little bit of that crackling sound. Let's just see if we can nip that in the bud here. Just outputting the crackle. Oh, it sounds like some messed up ASMR, doesn't it? Oh God, oh no. All right, enough of that. Okay, that definitely helped. No, it's so hard to tell with that unbelievable computer. Cool.
It don't make sense to me.
Sweet. So I know we got that now. So let's just hear what our room mic sounds like.
Wishing I just kept it to myself.
So that's pretty balanced. I mean, it doesn't sound good all that much, but the energy is there, which I like a lot. So for some clarity, let's just knock out all of those bass frequencies, since this is a high energy thing. Okay, that opened up the bass a lot already. Okay, we're back. There aren't a lot of rules in life, but one of them is if your brother calls you or texts you to play Halo, you do it. So, yeah, cool. So we're working on the bass sound, so let's kind of listen back to where we were.
3, I've been spending all my time trying to read your mind.
So one thing Josh did,
which
interestingly, I didn't really get until this moment, is he had this really interesting vocal effect on Joe. And I think he got it by keeping some of that room sound in there, but everything else didn't sound roomy. It just sounded like his vocal, and he kind of did it with a little effect. So typically, for when I do shows that are primarily acoustic, I will keep the room mics in there just at the flat level and then work with them. But because Josh's mix was a little bit tighter, I think what we might do...
Try to say what's on my mind, but a second later I'm wishing I just kept it to myself.
Let's just turn them off for now, and then we'll kind of work them back in. Work back in a little bit. So,
all my time
as this goes through, for horns,
sometimes the things you
just a blanket high-pass filter. I like the horn tone. We were using 58s. It's pretty warm, which is fine.
I just kept it to myself.
You know, one thing that that Josh pegged immediately, and I heard them more as a jazz band, is he said this band is super poppy, and they are. You know, and it's funny that this kind of came up, but Maroon 5 Songs About Jane came up in my Spotify recently, and they have a little bit of that first album, not the whole thing, but just kind of the more blue-eyed soul stuff. The Sideways has just a little bit of that, especially when he does more of this quarter note piano thing, which isn't in this track, but I'll play you just a little bit of that one so you guys can hear what I'm talking about.
Is making hope you
So just this
take it in sense of sucking. I've been cheating. I've been stable for my
that
family. It's not feeling right,
Let's
but
go
at
up here.
least I'm standing upright.
Anywho, so let's go back to Common Ground,
2, 3, I
and I'm going to set this to low because I think we're getting some latency there.
I've been spending all my time trying to read your mind. Sometimes the things
So the
you
vocal
say don't make
definitely
sense.
needs some work.
Try to say what's on my mind.
You know, and it's weird. This is a Sennheiser mic,
Wishing I just kept it to myself.
which I like because it was a bit brighter than the 58,
I'm
than a
just looking
58.
for some common ground.
But it's just-
He's really
It's
not
weird.
your
I
type,
think
but he wears
I was using this
clothes
first
you
gen
like,
Focusrite, I think, and like
cooks you dinner like I used
those
to.
are not good
I've been
preamps.
drinking every night.
So that sounds better already.
Tryna find this right.
Let's kinda get
Oh, maybe just somebody for the night.
So that, I don't love how that sounds on its own. Obviously,
I'm just looking
there's
for
some guys who say
common
never do
ground.
solo, but we're just kind of, for what we're doing, it's kind of damage control. But yeah, let's kind of see how that sits better.
But a second later,
Okay.
I'm
Big difference.
wishing I just kept it to myself.
So now we'll probably need a de-esser.
I'm just looking for some common ground.
This also just straight up
Not your
needs some
type,
gain.
But he wears clothes you like.
Well, it's peeking out here.
It cooks you dinner like I used
So let's
to.
turn that. Yeah, let's just turn this down a little bit. So this is our bus with everything besides vocals in there.
Maybe just somebody for the night.
A lot of horns, but that's fine for now.
I'm just looking for some common ground.
Cool. I think that's better. Let's just throw on a de-esser. I don't think it's going to do a lot, at least on this track, because there were some other ones that they did where the S's were a bit more
But a
pronounced.
second later, I'm wishing I just kept it to myself.
Cool. I think that helps a bit.
I'm just looking for some common
Sweet.
ground. He's really
Let's just add some
not your
compression
type,
there.
but he wears clothes you like.
I don't think it needs a lot. Josh is going to be much more compressed than I'm going
I've
to
been
do.
drinking every night.
You know, and even though this is a pop band,
Find this right.
these horn lines are so jazzy, and I almost want it to sound like it's a micro big band, kind of. So I want it to sound a little bit more live. I want it to take some of the crackle, in a good way, that Josh's mix had, but you know, just split the difference between what I would think a live jazz record would sound like and what he did. So we want some compression to make it sit in there a little bit better. You know, even just looking at the waveforms, we don't need a ton,
Or maybe
but just something to help it
for the night.
sit in there a little bit better.
I'm just looking for some common ground.
Cool. Big
It's
difference.
on my mind. But a second later, I'm wishing I just kept it to
So now
myself.
with that, we can bring all that back up.
I'm just looking for some
Scoop out just a
common
little
ground. He's
bit.
really
Vocal,
not your
nice.
type, but he
In that
wears
vocal range.
clothes you like. It cooks you dinner like I used to. I've been drinking
Cool.
every night. Trying to
a little
find
more
this
aggressive
right.
high-pass filter on
Oh,
the
maybe
trumpet,
just
'cause,
somebody
you know.
for the night.
Oh yeah, nice. That helps.
For common ground.
Cool. I didn't really know what I was doing back then. The tracking on this is pretty good. Yeah, let's just do some basic stuff on the overheads. Now, we didn't have individual tom mics, and that bass amp was right by there. So we're gonna have to be mindful of that when it comes to our overhead. So you can hear how much that bass is in there, especially in that left channel. Wow. So the toms, he's not using super low-pitched toms, which is going to help us out a bit. You know what I might try? I don't think this is going to work at all. But just basically side chain the overhead. Side shade the overhead, and it's not going to sound very good at all, I don't think, but let's just try it. It certainly helps the bass. Okay. Kind of don't hate that, actually. Okay, that's that. We need some compression on the snare here. You know, yeah. And the hard part is because the bass amp, as you can tell, is right by that low tom too. So right there's our bass amp, and that's the low tom. And if it was on the side of the high tom, we could probably get away with some different EQ choices there. So that's kind of a pickle that puts us in. You know, let me try something. Instead of flipping the phase on our bass, let's try it on the overheads and see what that sounds like. You know what? I'm going to do that on all of the bass, actually. Or just all the drum bus here. There we go. That did it. Wow. We're still getting a little bleed from the left channel. Yikes, that is severe. Oh, let's go back to Josh's mix to see how he managed this. I have no idea how he did this.
2, 3, I've been spending all
obviously a mastering difference here.
My time trying to read your mind. Sometimes the things you do, they don't make sense to me. Try to say what's on my mind, but a second later I'm wishing I just kept it to myself. I'm just looking.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll address that later. Let's tackle some other stuff. So it's not going to sound like that, but
things you do, they don't make sense to me.
We need some bus compression on the horns
but
here.
A second later, I'm wishing I just kept it to myself.
So the reason I'm doing bus compression,
common ground,
because we want these horns to sound like one synth, essentially. I'm putting a compressor on the whole thing.
Every night, trying to find this right, or maybe there's somebody for the night. I'm just looking for some common ground.
No. Alright, there we go. A little bit better. We can always automate. Really what we're doing right now is we're just getting the sound. ducked what we were
All my
definitely
time
missing there before.
Trying to read your
I mean, it didn't even sound like there was guitar there at all.
The things you do, they don't make sense to me. Trying to say what's on my mind.
French horn. But again, this is not meant to be, we're going to be automating every single thing here. We're just trying to capture the sound of it. And then, you know, this stuff you can take care of
But a second later,
automation.
I wishing I just kept it to myself. I'm just
Okay, guitar's back. Oh yeah, all right. So because I'm kind of going for more of a jazz thing here, I don't mind some more lowing in the guitar, but we've got to tame that a
I've
little
been
bit.
drinking every night.
By contrast, I absolutely want some heavier keys, and I think this just needs gain. This is something that, for those folks out there who do a lot of live tracking, you're gonna find this. You know, if you're working quick, yeah, and not everything's gonna be perfectly gain staged. So this is something that I've kind of had to deal with. But
Trying to read your
there we go,
mind.
okay.
Sometimes the things you do, they don't make sense to me. Try to say what's on my mind. But a second later, I wishing I
Nice.
just kept looking for some.
I'm going to turn off the RX because I think there's some latency there, which is making things weird.
All
We'll
my
add it back
time
in
trying
later.
to read
We'll just
your
kinda deal with the
mind.
consequences.
Sometimes the things you do, they don't make sense to me. Try to say what's on my mind.
Cool.
But a second later, I wishing I just kept it to myself.
A little bit of compression on both those. But already,
I'm just looking for
you know, even just with a little bit of
common
work,
ground. I'm not your type, but
I mean, this
will.
sounds
Clothes you like,
way better.
cooks you dinner like
And
I
you-
used to.
You know,
I've
to
been
me,
drinking
also,
every night.
this is one of those things where,
Find this right.
like, you're kind of thinking like a
Maybe
producer a little
somebody
bit, as opposed to just a mix engineer. But, like, Joe's the leader of the band, so I just, you know, like, I don't mind a little bit more piano. You know, even if it is, you know, maybe not the mix engineer's preferred choice. You know, it's fine. I don't mind a little bit more. Oh, you guys can deal with a little bit warmer screen, right? We'll leave it that way for now. This is still the first one of these we're doing. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Funny.
1, 2, 3. I've been spending all my time trying to read your mind. Sometimes the things you do, they don't make sense to me. Try to say what's on my mind. But a second later,
While this plays, I'm going to work on some
wishing I
drums a little
just kept
bit.
it to myself. I'm just looking for some common ground. Really, I'm not your type, but he will.
Kind of a high snare,
Clothes
too.
you like, it cooks you dinner like
of
I used to.
High fundamentals,
I've
which
been
is
drinking
nice.
every night, trying to find this right, or maybe just somebody for tonight. I'm just looking for some common ground.
Oh, yeah. Crack. It's such a high snare. It's really kind of an unusual sound. That's helping it cut through a lot when it gets super loud. I think what we might have to do here. Whoa. I think what we might have to do here is oh yeah, boy, some of this was so long ago. Anyway, I think
just
for the
looking
snare we
for
might have to do
common
some
ground.
serial compression here. Between those really high ones do that, I'm just going to try raising or quickening up the attack a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That fattens it up a little bit. Okay, kick drum just needs some gain as well. Yep. Cool. Need some EQage as well. Whoa. So that definitely explains what I'm hearing a little bit. So, you know, and it's funny, you can look back at the video and you can clearly see that there's a hole in the kick drum and I did not put it in there. So I think some of what is kind of causing this confused sound in this kick drum is that it's smacking up against the thing a little bit, so we got to do a lot of shaping with it. Cool. And now we'll just take that same, nice. We'll take that same level there, make a little scoop in our bass. Yeah, there we go. That thumping. Let's make this a little more heavy-handed here.
All my time trying to read your mind. Sometimes the things you do, they don't make sense to me. Trying to say what's on my mind, but a second later I wishing I just kept it to myself. I'm just looking for some common ground.
Nice. Boy, and that's a lot of bleed from the room.
Sometimes the things you do, they don't make sense to me. Try to say what's on my mind, but a second later I wishing
flipping
I
the phase
just
on the
kept it
vocals,
to
too.
myself.
I had a lot of reverb
I'm just looking for
on his
some
vocal
common ground.
for some reason. Thought I might a little bit in that there. Let's try it around here instead.
Close your
There we go.
Cooks you dinner like I used to. I've been drinking every night, trying to find this right. Or maybe there's somebody for tonight.
Last
I'm
kick.
just looking for some common ground.
Boy, that is tough. You know, I think what we might be able to do to fake this a bit, it's something I was thinking before, but let's just try left channel only, you know, and then whatever. The kick drum will be, or, you know, the tom mics will be more centered, whatever. So we can just kind of hear how that's shifting in our stereo field. So still a lot of bleed. But I think that's kind of our magic level there.
Get around 2 or 3, but I can't sleep. I can't stop thinking about a face.
I think this was in my psychotic period of when I was recording stuff and wasn't checking it in headphones. And I produced a lot of really not terrible recordings that way. And I cannot, looking back on it, I can't believe I did that.
All my time,
I wouldn't have
trying to read your mind. Sometimes the things you do, they don't.
I mean, we've only really been doing this in earnest for about 40 minutes with a halo break in between. But I mean, the difference from where it was until it is now is huge. You know, there's a lot of automating to be done here to get this to be a final mix. But the reason I want to do a little bit on the mastering end now is just because a lot of that sound Josh got was just he added in some high end. And so let's just kind of add some in. We'll see what happens.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, that certainly did a lot.
I'm trying to say what's on my mind. But a second later, I'm wishing I just kept it to myself.
A little volume drop there. The kick there was kind of weird.
It's on my mind. But a second later, I'm
okay.
But a second later, I'm wishing I just kept it to myself. I'm just looking for some common ground. He's really not your type, but he wears clothes you like and cooks you dinner like I used to. I've been drinking every night, trying to find this right, or maybe there's somebody for tonight.
Take a little bit of low end out of the keys.
I'm just
I like the weight,
for some common
but
ground.
keys are less. Oh yeah, nice, big difference. Still feel heavy between the guitar and keys, but it's not as much. It's a little lighter. Nice. I like how kind of the guitar naturally came back in there. We still get some nice low end from those keys. Put some more bass back in. Could use a lot of sax. Oh, man. That's bad. That is so weird. I don't even know what would cause that. That's kind of what's odd. I mean, it almost sounds like the direct injection is loose. You know, I mean, whatever. I don't really remember from the show. I mean, that was, years ago. But I don't remember his bass sounding like that, so that's just something I missed. So something that and we're just going to be dealing with this crackling thing for now, but something that you heard in there. So first of all, that's our only thing without compression, so that's why the bass kind of sounds uneven right now. But we're going to put on a multi-band compressor first, and the reason we're going to do that is because of how we've EQ'd everything. There's a lot of room for that low end, so when he kind of pops in there, it's just louder than everything else. So we're going to tame that a little bit. Excuse me. So then when we go into our compressor, oof. Josh, how did you fix this, brother? Well done. Yes, I know I'm supposed to use my ears and look, but we're trying to work quickly here. Just put that on strength. All right. I think the other thing we're going to do and I'm not saying you got to do this every time, but this is something that you can try with the bass. But if we're dealing with this much crackle, I think that'll help. Oh, yeah.
2 or 3, but
oh, yeah. What a difference. We'll just take that off for playback purposes. Slamming. This is slamming. Awesome, awesome.
all my time trying to
Nice.
reach. I'm just looking for some comment.
I think everything else can come down 1.5 to give Joe a little room in the vocal.
For some but a second later, I wishing I just kept it to myself.
Maybe a little bit less.
I'm
I
just
don't mind
looking
it
for
kind of floating
some
up there.
common ground.
Actually.
Really, I'm not your type, but
Instead.
close.
Again, some of this is more of an automation thing. You know, for the purposes of this, I'm not going to automate the horns every single time he sings and then bring them back up. We're just not going to do that right now. But this is just an approximate mix.
But a second
Automated, that little bit of automation keeps getting stuck there with that.
later,
And I don't know why it does that. Oh, there we go.
I
'Cause there's a dude over there. Cool. Okay, now let's... Hey, nice.
wishing I just kept it to myself. I'm just looking for some common ground.
The other thing I'm going to do, and so really in terms of, again, my crusade's too strong a word, but you don't need a lot of stuff that, so in fact what I'm going to do, no, I'm not going to do that right now because I got to do this specific thing, but for what I do, I work, I really do field recordings. And, not that this is a ton of channels. It isn't a field recording in the sense that I'm just setting up one set of microphones and my Logic might crash here. But, I just put it into my X32 and there you go. And I say that to say, I don't have time to make a ton of complicated mic choices. If a 57 is going to work, I'm going to use a 57. And because I'm mobile, I'm not going to bring in a ton of rack-mounted preamps or think, ooh, this preamp will be better for this or this preamp will be better for that. So, by and large, I just kind of can get what I can get in that way. And Logic might be crashing here. So what we're going to do is I'll just end on this thought here. And what I'll also do is I'll also post a samply link so you guys can listen to my mix back here, and I'll do some very light mastering on it so you guys can hear. But yeah, what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to put in just a little bit of a Pultec plugin from Waves. When the gain is up there, I find it tends to respond in a bit more of a natural or warmer way compared to the Logic built-in plugin. But guys, throughout this mix, the only non-stock plugin I've used so far is that RX Fixer for the decrackle. And then on the mastering chain, Ozone has a nice vintage limiter I like. I don't use it for anything too complicated, just to bring the gain up. The Logic limiter is weird. I find I get a lot of artifacts with it. And I used it for a long time, and it never quite seemed to work the way I wanted it to. So yeah, again, thank you guys so much for checking this out and kind of getting an inside look here. I'm Dan from Stereo Field Recordings. In the description, you're going to find the original link to our Songs from Studio B episode, Rochester Indie Musician Spotlight episode. I'll put info there if you want to get in touch with Josh if you really loved his mix, and I'll also put a sampling link so you guys can just click on it and listen to my mix when it's done. Thanks for watching. We'll see you out there.